we are starting now with Matteo D'Andreta from Ethereum's Everywhere doing ecosystem.
Thank you so much, Davide. Okay. Thank you, guys. Oh, thank you for the applause. I know it's lunchtime, so thank you so much for joining. I hope this will be a soft talk. Maybe you will decide it at the end, but for sure it's an interesting one. Today, I'm going to talk about the Ethereum core values that basically has made Ethereum the decentralized and resilient world computer. I am part of the Ethereum Foundation. As Davide said, I'm in the Ethereum Everywhere team. I'll mention a couple of words about the team at the end of the talk. But for this talk, I took inspiration from the EF mandate, that is a manifesto published by the Ethereum Foundation a couple of months ago. That is basically a set of principles and rules of what the Ethereum Foundation need to follow for any decision regarding the protocol development and ecosystem efforts. Probably you have heard or listened to something related to crops recently. But basically, what are these crops? We are talking about censorship resistance, open source, privacy, and security, what are defined by the EF mandate as the sine qua non of all the Ethereum development priorities. But before looking at them one by one, I wanted to let's see the concrete consequences of what is already now Ethereum and why following these principles since the beginning has created the unique decentralized layer that can be interacted with in a trustless, permissionless, and persistent way. Again, in terms of consequences for the end users and companies that build on top of Ethereum, first, of course, we all know there is no user control. Right now, we are talking about only the protocol layer, of course, not the apps on top, because then we should talk about the permissions on the smart contracts and so on. But on the protocol, we all know that there is no user control, there is no dominant actor, basically, neither the EF or a government or a single company can control your funds, who deploys applications, and so on. And the permissionless participation, again, both on the protocol layer and on the ecosystem side, because anyone can be a validator, anyone can validate the transactions. On the other side, anyone can deploy application, and as a user, anyone can use the applications. The last one is quite interesting, also if sometimes criticized, let's say, but the walkway test, something that Vitalik and the EF in their mind since the beginning. Basically, Ethereum should be reliable, trustless, usable, even if the core developers disappear one day. Okay, so this is, I would say, like the main principles of going in the direction of decentralization. Now let's see them one by one. The censorship resistant, basically again, there is no centralized actor that can block valid transaction, control access to the network, or selectively silence participants. Let's say this is a principle that we all know. DF also reinforces that this not be compromised for convenience or maybe for some like legal restrictions that could happen in some of the countries. This should be, of course, the foundational of the Ethereum long-term purpose and also what guides ecosystem coordination. In terms of open source, anything that has been done again, on the protocol layer, if we think about the EIP discussions, the ACD calls, and so on, is built completely in public. Maybe you guys don't know, but for any hard fork, for any EIP, there is a public discussion, multiple teams that are contributing to the code, testing it, and so on. And why, in this case, is also fundamental, the open source, because it guarantees that the other properties, censorship resistance, privacy, and security, are broadly distributed, iterable, and customizable. The thing is that what I really want to, let's say, give it to you after this talk is that the goal is to not give to any single individual or group an asymmetric advantage compared to users or the devs. And why? Because if everything is open source, anyone can check the code, verifying it, and so on. In terms of privacy, that has also been added to the straw map, that is the technical roadmap published by Justin Drake, always in March this year. privacy is often, let's say, connected to only criminal activities, but really we are talking about a fundamental human right, and it's more related to freedom and to consent. Anyone should be able to share the information with who they want in the terms they want. And again, technically speaking, we know that the Ethereum mainnet right now does not have it's not privacy native, let's say. Of course, there are some protocols on top, Railgun and so on, but it's not, we can't call the layer 1 purely private. But again, this is one of the 5 North Stars, the technical goals before 2029. The others are the fast layer 1. This is just a recap for all of you in case you have not seen the straw map. That is, again, how the Ethereum will evolve in the next years. Fast layer 1 means bringing finality from minutes to seconds. Gigagas layer 1 means scaling the layer 1 and arrive to up to 10K transaction per second. Teragas layer 2 means scaling the layer 2 via data availability sampling, something that has already started with Fusaka. And this means that layer 2 will arrive to up to 10 million transactions per second. The fourth one, the post-quantum layer 1, is probably the most challenging because at the same time it impacts all the others, North Stars, and all the 3 layers of Ethereum: consensus, execution, and data layer. For security, of course, no one wants to harm the end user, so security means simply preventing that system integrity. Huge investments are dedicated both from the foundation and from other projects to test and verify each line of the code, basically. And again, I mentioned before, for any of the art forks, there are multiple teams contributing, testnet, and so on. There is one particular thing, again, in this, from the EF mandate regarding this principle that I wanted to bring to you, that is the relation between security and simplicity of code. Because if we connect this again to the governance minimization, that means that not a small amount of people, not a small group of developers can understand that code, for example, if it is completely closed source and so on. The code must be simple. Almost anyone should be able to read it, again, to contribute to it, and so on. So let's reduce the lines of code, external dependencies, and so on. And regarding security, I wanted also to mention this $1 trillion security initiative that was started last year by EF. We all know that we are in the 11th year of uptime of Ethereum, so we can easily consider it the most secure blockchain ecosystem. This initiative is an ecosystem-wide effort. Basically, this means that there are other builders, teams, developers, auditors, and so on involved in this initiative to make Ethereum more secure. And there are 2, let's say, concrete end goals of this initiative. The first is related to individuals that should be comfortable of storing more than $1K on chain, and the other 2 companies, institutions, and governments that should be able to store $1 trillion of value inside a smart contract. Practically speaking, right now there is a mapping of all the attack vendors to all the Ethereum tech stack. Then again, the goal is to involve all the other players in the ecosystem to make Ethereum more secure. Last, let's say that I have understood in those years, because again, probably also if we now have these name crops forever, let's say Ethereum has been crops aligned. But I have understood, and also for the last year that I've been in the F, that following crops create some kind of trade-offs. On one side, we have an higher engineering complexity, some very difficult coordination decisions, because again, there are multiple teams involved, multiple interests, and so on. But on the other side is literally what is preserving the long-term decentralization of Ethereum. In an ecosystem that we all know that is basically always more focused on growth and user acquisition, value extraction, speculation, and so on the other side, Ethereum wants to optimize for self-sovereignty and self-custody, resilience, neutrality, and permissionless access, basically all the properties that we have just described. I want to close the topic by literally reading a statement from the EF mandate, that is, the EF world computer must rise and take its rightful place as a shining star in the constellation of technologies that underpin human freedom and flourishing. One simple comment will be that let's say this is not just an ideology already now in terms of the technological aspect of mainnet. Everything is quite crops aligned. It's, again, not just an ideology. If you guys want to read the F mandate, probably you have already seen it on Twitter and so on. Couple of words about me and the Ethereum Everywhere team. Again, we are part of the Ethereum Foundation. We are the main team working with communities, events like ETHMilan. And our major initiative is the Ethereum Community Apps. This, Limone mentioned it in the previous panel. There are right now 9 Ethereum community apps around the world: San Francisco, London, Berlin, Rome, Dubai, Lagos, Hong Kong, Buenos Aires, and Lisbon, and others are coming. Basically, you should consider this place like the center of activity of the Ethereum in that region. You can always find other entrepreneurs, builders, try to build also, contribute startups and open source projects. This is a reminder for everyone here that is DevCon 8 coming in India in November this year. If you like, I think, yes, Ethereum, I really suggest you to go. And thank you so much. This is a QR code from the ethereum.org website, with the Ethereum Community Apps initiatives, events, and meetups. Thank you so much, guys.